The House of Lords give up, Her Majesty the Queen confirms Brexit, and we prepare to celebrate our independence on the 31st of January. Right, hello freedom fighters. It's happened. It's here. Brexit is coming home. It's officially confirmed. And the House of Lords finally gave up. Obviously, yesterday, over the last couple of days, they had some amendments. They sent it back to the Commons. But because Boris Johnson has a majority, he was able to completely reject all of them, send it back to the Lords. And the House of Lords just gave up. They were too tired. This was the moment in the House of Lords when the Brexit bill was officially confirmed by them.
The question is that motions B to E be agreed to en bloc. As many of our opinion will say content. Content. The contrary not content. The contents have it.
Well, there was a bit of an anticlimax going on over there. but in reality, what you saw there was a sound of defeat. The Lords finally gave up. They knew they can't do anything else. This is what the country needs. And they're going to go and think about the next step of their life, whatever it is. But in reality, I know this seemed too easy, especially since the December election got a majority and it just happened. It wasn't. You know it wasn't. For most of you, you've been campaigning for this for the past few decades of your lives. For me personally, for the past 10 years of my life, I've dedicated my time to this cause. And at times, it seemed impossible. At times, it was just a small group of us talking about the idea of having a referendum, the idea of one day this country becoming independent. Even back in 2016, it wasn't easy. You know, we weren't up against a normal campaign. We were up against the whole establishment, all of them. They had all the big banks behind them. They had the presidents and prime ministers from across the world. They had all the major party leaders behind them. They had the IMF, the United Nations, the European Union, everybody. They had the President Barack Obama coming here and saying random things. They called us names. They labeled us things. They said we're stupid. They said we're liars, even though it was them that done most of the lying. They outspent our campaign. They had everything in their pocket, the media and everybody, all the rich people who dedicated their money and time to help their cause. And yet, ordinary people in this country decided to rise up and say no. Enough is enough. But none of this would have happened if it weren't for a number of charismatic leaders to help lead this movement. Douglas Carswell, Nigel Farage, Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson, vote leave activists such as Tom Harwood and Darren Grimes, who were vilified for campaigning for something they were passionate about. Hundreds and hundreds of regional and local Brexiteer campaigners up and down this country, from Sunderland to Southampton, from Newport to Newcastle, up and down this country, everybody. It was all down to you guys, so thank you. But we have more good news because Her Majesty's government, the Buckingham Palace, have announced that on the 31st of January they have planned something for outside of Buckingham Palace and on the Mall. Basically, the government have now announced its official plans to commemorate Britain leaving the EU at 11 p.m. on the 31st of January. However, a new victory has been won after Minister Nigel Adams signed off on the Union flag being flown down the Mall to celebrate Brexit. And yes, it's the Union flag, not the Union Jack. In addition to the Union flag flying in Parliament Square, a light display in Downing Street and a countdown clock will also be projected against number 10. So this is all good news, and we are going to be preparing for this massive celebration on the 31st of January. But this is not the end, because Brexit is just the beginning of a bigger movement when it comes to freedom, independence, self-governance, and what the ordinary people out there wanted, the left behind, all of us. It's not just regardless of your class and your region, your city and your town. Everybody would be affected, and I'm glad that this government is actually serious about tackling the issues that are actually very important around the country. We have some good news from Boris Johnson. Last night he did his people's PMQs online, and they were asking him questions. He now plans to give tax cuts to millions of ordinary people out there, this time not just for the rich and the corporations, but actually ordinary people, which will be interesting. Basically, responding to a question from one viewer calling for a lower tax for working people instead of taxing them to breaking point, the PM said is right. One of the things we are already doing that has already been announced is that we're cutting national insurance contributions for everybody. And national insurance is actually interesting because not many people actually see it as tax. If you combine national insurance and income tax on your payslip, you actually realize you're paying basically more than 50% of your income anyway. So this would be an interesting thing, insisting that he wanted to reduce taxes for lower income workers. He said, what we are also doing is lifting the living wage by the biggest ever amount. That will mean that people earning the living wage will see another £930 immediately, almost £1,000 a year more. Now, personally, I have my own reservations and opposition when it comes to national living wage as a concept, but that's just how the way we run the economy in this country, so I'll just leave it to the Treasury to sort this out. But this victory has been quite fun to watch because we've had a number of big Remainers giving up, accepting defeat, leaving, some people changing their tune. George Osborne, who used to be, well, he was basically in charge, one of the people in charge of the Remain campaign. Luckily, he didn't actually become a Remoaner. He didn't go around after 2016 saying, well, we should basically destroy Brexit. Not too much. He was moaning about it, but that was it. He's now realised the reality and how the whole game with the trade talks between the UK and the EU will play out. And this is what he had to say.
We have moved beyond the point where the EU had the maximum leverage, which was they could have withheld a withdrawal agreement from the UK. Now they're going to start thinking Britain is the second largest economy, the key security partner. It's got a big trade deficit with the EU, 200 billion odd euro. And I think once the sort of heat of the departure starts to abate, sensible heads in Berlin and Paris and Brussels will start to say, how do we create a new relationship?
Well done, George. It's never too late to come to the dark side. But jokes aside, actually Boris Johnson has quite massively helped this movement, not just in 2016 to get the votes out, but since he became the leader of the Conservative Party, with all the flaws that the Conservative Party and the Conservative government have had over the last few years, they are trying to redeem themselves. And Boris Johnson last night became the parliamentarian of the year. This was the award organised by The Spectator, and he wasn't actually there at the ceremony to accept it, but he did a video message, which is let's just watch this bit. It's quite interesting.
I'll be with you tonight at The Spectator's historic awards ceremony for the Parliamentarian of the Year, but I have found somebody who is able to accept the honour on my behalf. Thanks to everybody at The Spectator for the award. I'm hugely grateful and honoured. The Spectator, the greatest magazine in the English language. The Spectator, top breeders recommend.
Now, I'm more of a cat person than dog person, but Dylan is one of my favourite dogs. But on a separate note, we have more good news. We're not going to end the video just yet, because on the day when Brexit was officially confirmed by Her Majesty the Queen, the BBC also announced some cuts. So they need to do some budget cuts, and they've announced that they are cancelling the Victoria Derbyshire show. I don't know. I was way too happy about this when it came out. Basically, Victoria Derbyshire show is now going to come off air as part of the BBC cuts, which is very exciting. This is one of the most useless and pointless shows, daytime TV shows. Very biased, extremely biased against the Conservatives, against Brexiteers. These were the people who brought on Brexiteers on the show to make fun of them, to insult them, to do name calling. Now, surprisingly, there were some certain people who were upset about this news. Well, you could guess who these people are. Labour MPs. Yes, the Labour MPs are quite upset about this news. So one of them said, I'll be looking into why Victoria Derbyshire is being taken off air. Rigorous campaigning and commitment to public having their say made it pretty unique in daytime TV. Victoria herself was sharp and approachable with a personal journey. I can assure you she was not approachable. Every single time I met her, she was, I'm just going to stop here now. And then we had Jess Phillips. Our beloved Jess Phillips. She said, this is really sad to see. Political programming that reached a largely working class audience. Without their work on family courts, I really believe that we would not have got the government to agree to the review, which is just one of the examples. of the good journalism done by the team. Now, I don't doubt that obviously even shows like the Victoria Derbyshire did some good, but that's not the point, because if it was a different show and with a different presenter with the same concept, they would have done the exact same thing. The problem with Victoria Derbyshire is her extremely biased approach for someone who's the show is supposed to be on the BBC, with their charter, with the whole we are very impartial. That's the ridiculous part about Victoria Derbyshire. But it doesn't matter. We're going to focus on our celebrations. We have, I think, 8 days to go till Brexit. We are going to be in Parliament Square, outside Parliament, on the 31st of January, 11 p.m. countdown. Get your Brexit t-shirts. We have our obviously latest UK Independence Day, 31st of January 2020 t-shirts. The link is in the description as always. So check it out. If you enjoy the content and you're new to the channel, make sure you click on the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you get notified. We have a daily show at 5:45 p.m. And we are going to be reporting some new stuff about the European Union the next few weeks. So make sure that you stay tuned. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new video.